Welcome to Nuka Nights. Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great time in the wasteland. If you want to support Nuka Nights, make sure to like this video, subscribe the channel and activate all alerts. This helps the YouTube algorithm to spread the video and grow the channel. In this Fallout 76 video I will show you all new 4-star legendary mods that will be available in the next update in December. The 4-star legendary mods will be rewards from the new raid called Gleaming Depth. After each stage you have the chance to get a 4-star legendary mod. Also I will show you all the new unique named 4-star legendary weapons. There will also be rewards of each stage of the new raid. As we currently know, 4-star legendary mods can only be obtained inside of the raid Gleaming Depth. If you successfully completed stage 1, you have a 10% chance to get a 4-star legendary mod. After stage 2 there's a 15% chance, after stage 3 a 20% chance, after stage 4 a 25% chance, and after stage 5 a 30% chance to get a random 4-star legendary mod. 4-star legendary mods also cannot be applied randomly on a new weapon. You can only apply 3 random legendary mods. The 4th star will only applied if you have the mod itself. If you get a 4-star legendary mod from the raid, you can apply it to a weapon or armor. Also, the purveyor in the Rusty Pick does not sell 4-star legendary weapons or armor. And as we currently know, there are no 4-star legendary enemies that can drop 4-star legendary items outside of the raid. Everything you see here is the latest PTS version of 15th November 2024 and can still be changed until released in December. But it's pretty likely that this is pretty much final right now. Now I will go through the 4-star legendary mods available in alphabetical order. I will start with Aegis. Fortifies physical and energy resist by +50 and poison cryo fire resist by +20 for wearer and teammates within a 50 feet radius. It requires 5 circuitry and 120 legendary modules to craft and is only available on power armor. Next is Battle Loaders. 15% chance to instantly reload when bashing enemies, up to 75% chance on full stack. So when you have it on all 5 parts of your armor, then you have 75% chance. It requires 1 talent serum and 120 legendary modules to craft and is available for armor and power armor. Bruisers is available for armor and power armor, requires 1 buff tats and 120 legendary modules to craft, and the effect is melee weapons deal plus 5% bonus damage up to 25% on full stack. So this might be a nice thing for a full melee armor. Next is Bullies. When attacking outside of VATS, deal plus 50% bonus weak point damage. It requires 1 buff out and 120 legendary modules and is available for ranged and melee weapons. This might be useful for heavy gunners when aiming to the head, and also might be useful for melee chars. For example, when you hit the queen with the auto X on the head, that's quite a nice buff of 50% bonus. Choo Choo's has a lot similarities to the perk card Pain Train in strength. It says 10% chance for 500 damage and bloody mess when sprinting into targets, up to 50% chance on full stack. Crafting requires 15 cannonballs and 120 legendary modules, and it can be only applied to power armor, obviously. Next is Combo Breakers. When dealing damage, 50% chance to not use AP, 10% chance for auto melee weapons. It requires 1 Day Tripper and 120 legendary modules to craft and is only available for melee weapons. It might be helpful if you have problems with AP on the auto X, for example. Conductress has the effect Critical hits restore 5% of health and action points for player and teammates within a 50 feet radius. Crafting requires 5 pure Crimson Flux and 120 legendary modules, and is available for melee and ranged weapons. This is a quite helpful 4-star legendary effect for crit builds now. It originally restored full health and full AP on each critical hit, and which was obviously too OP, so they changed it and it should still be useful. Next 4-star legendary mod is Electricians. When reloading, emit a shockwave that stuns nearby targets for 3 seconds. This pretty much sounds like the circuit breaker, and it requires 1 bobblehead energy weapons to craft and 120 legendary modules. It can only be applied to ranged weapons. Encirclers. Plus 10% damage for each combat target around you, up to plus 50%. It requires 1 overdrive and 120 legendary modules to craft, and can be applied to ranged and melee weapons. I don't think it's that useful, because normally a 3-star legendary weapon is enough to deal with mobs that are surrounding you. Fencers deals plus 12.5% melee damage, additional plus 12.5% for each nearby teammate, up to 50% on a full team. Requires 1 bobblehead melee and 120 legendary modules to craft, and can only be applied to melee weapons. Well, this could be a really nice melee buff, but I'm not sure how close your teammates have to be to give you the full melee buff of 50%. So that needs some tests, I think. The next effect is Fracturers. When crippling limbs, they explode and deal up to 50 explosion damage to nearby targets. Requires 25 gunpowder and 120 legendary modules to craft, and can be applied to ranged and melee weapons. This can be fun, but also might be annoying if it's happening too much. We will see how it works in the live game. Iceman's 4-star legendary mod applies cryo on hit that slows target when dealing damage in watts. It requires 5 pure fluorescent flux and 120 legendary modules to craft, and is only available for melee weapons. I'm not sure if that's helpful, because, well, dealing damage in watts on melee, I only use watts on my melee char to trigger hack and slash. Limit breaking. Each worn armor piece reduces the cost of critical hits by minus 10%, up to minus 50% on full stack. Requires 5 pure violet flux and 120 legendary modules to craft, and is available for armor and power armor. This might also be interesting for crit builds, maybe in combination with Conductor's 4-star legendary mod on a weapon. Next 4-star legendary mod is Miasmas. When hit, a poisonous DOT damage over time cloud harms nearby targets for 10 seconds. DOT damage increases per equipped piece. What you cannot read in the description of the mod is it deals just 10 poison and 10 red damage over the time span of 10 seconds. Basically 1 poison and 1 red per second, which barely does anything. I'm not sure how this can be helpful. Pinpointers. Plus 50% damage when targeting enemy appendages, for example arms or legs. Maybe this might be helpful against the robots in neurological warfare. It requires 1 Formula P and 120 legendary modules to craft, and is only available for ranged weapons. Polished is a quite interesting 4-star legendary mod. The greater the equipped item condition, plus 100%, the greater the weapon damage, up to plus 60%. So each percent above 100% gives you a bonus damage. That might be useful if you're using a weapon with a good durability And also, if the condition falls below 100%, you can use an improved repair kit to push it again to plus 50% bonus damage. Next one is Pounders. Plus 1% auto and plus 10% non-auto damage buff after each consecutive melee hit on the same combat target, up to plus 100%. It requires 1 Fury and 120 legendary modules to craft and is only available on melee weapons. Well, I think this is a really nice buff for the Auto Axe. Since the Auto Axe deals 26 hits per second in third person and 18 in first person mode, you just need about 4 seconds to max out plus 100% bonus damage on the Queen, for example. Next is Propelling. Movement and sprint speed increased by plus 5% up to plus 25% on full stack. It requires 15 volt steel scrap and 120 legendary modules. Is only available on power armor. Pyromaniac. When a combat target is burning, deal plus 50% bonus damage. The crafting requires 15 asbestos and 120 legendary modules. It's available for ranged and melee weapons. Well, if you like fire and you like to play the Holy Fire, for example, that might be your mod for your 4-star legendary upgrade. Next is Radioactive Powered. Gain plus 2 AP regeneration at the cost of rats, up to plus 10 AP on full stack. It requires 5 pure cobalt flux and 120 legendary modules to craft and is only available on power armor. If you like to improve your AP regeneration and don't like rats, well, this is your 4-star legendary mod. The 4-star legendary mod Rangers is pretty interesting for all ranged weapon builds. So it's interesting for heavy builds as well as commando builds, because you get a general buff on all ranged weapons. Ranged weapons deal plus 5% bonus damage, up to plus 25% on full stack. Crafting requires 1 Psycho buff and 120 legendary modules. It's available on armor and power armor. Next is Reflective. Return 10% of damage received from an enemy target back towards them, up to 50% on full stack. That's a quite nice mod for a defensive tank build. And the crafting requires 1 Bubblehand Science and 120 legendary modules. Is only available on power armor. Rejuvenators. Gradually restores wearers and teammates health and action points within a 50 feet radius. Crafting requires 5 Stimpack Diffuser and 120 legendary modules. You can only apply it to power armor. This might be an interesting 4-star mod for a kind of medics build that supports your teammates and needs a lot of health and action points. Next is Runners. Sprinting action points cost reduced by minus 20% up to minus 100% on full stack. So you can basically run from one side to the other side of Appalachia without using any action points, with a full set of Runners 4-star legendary mods. It requires 10 purified water to craft and 120 legendary modules. It can be applied to armor and power armor. Sawbones. Health regenerates slowly, plus 1 health per second, up to plus 5 health per second on full stack. It requires 1 healing factor serum and 120 legendary modules to craft and can be applied to armor and power armor. This seems to be pretty similar to the regenerating effect that we already have on the 1st star, which is not very useful in practice, and I think it's not very useful in combat too, because you need faster health regeneration, and outside of combat you don't need this effect. You can just use a stim pack or drink some water. The next one is more interesting again. Scanners. Action points cost of VATS attacks reduced by -5% up to -25% on full stack. This is quite useful if you're planning to become a VATS heavy gunner. This mod can only be applied to power armor, and the crafting requires 1 XL and 120 legendary modules. Next one is stabilizers. Improves weapon recoil and stability by +50%. It requires 25 rubber and 120 legendary modules to craft and is only available for ranged weapons, obviously. Maybe this is useful on a heavy gun with a lot of recoil when you don't have a better 4-star legendary mod yet and you just use it until you get a better one to replace. The next 4-star legendary mod is Stalwarts. Power armor breaks 5% slower for owner and all teammates within a 50 feet radius, up to 25% slower on full stack. Well, since power armor barely breaks anytime, except when the ultragenetic mole miner hits you, I don't think that's much useful. But okay, it's there and maybe there's a use case for this. If you want to craft it, you need 1 bobblehead leader and 120 legendary modules. It's only available on power armor. Next one is tankies. Plus 200 damage resist for 10 seconds when standing still. 20 seconds cooldown. Up to plus 1000 on full stack. The crafting requires 5 ballistic fiber and 120 legendary modules. It's available on armor and power armor. This mod might be helpful in certain situations, but generally higher resistance is not always better. A damage reduction, this would be quite better than this one, but maybe it helps in some situations. And now let's get to the last 4-star legendary mod, which is Vipers. When a combat target is poisoned, deal plus 50% bonus damage. The crafting requires 15 acid and 120 legendary modules. You can apply it to ranged and melee weapons. This might be a nice addition to a weapon that you use with a Strangleheart power armor that already deals poison damage. Then you can boost your damage again with this 4-star mod. Now let's get to the unique 4-star legendary weapons from the raid. I will explain which one can be rewarded after which stage and go through the effects. You can also check out the video and the article about the raid, where I showed all the raid rewards already. But some effects have changed in the meantime, and I want to give a complete overview about all 4 stars in this video. The first stage of the raid is the Guardian bot, and after this stage you can get by 10% chance the weapon Valkyrie. There's also a chance of 5% to get the plan if you don't have the plan yet. So the Valkyrie is a Gatling laser and it does plus 50% damage to robots, it has plus 25% weapon speed and a 10% chance to cause the player to be invisible for 2 seconds when hitting a target. And the 4-star is the Bullies mod, which is when attacking outside of VATS, deal plus 50% bonus weak point damage. And it also has 2 other effects, which is weapon breaks 50% slower and lower hipfire accuracy. Stage 2 of the raid is the tunnel boring machine. After this stage you can get by 10% chance the weapon Drill Fist, which is an unarmed weapon and which has the perks plus 50% armor penetration, plus 50% limb damage, plus 3 strength, and the 4-star mod Combo Breakers, which is when dealing damage 50% chance to not use action points, 10% chance for auto melee weapons. And there are also 2 other effects, which is applies fire and bleed, DOT on contact, and -5 durability. The plan of this weapon can also be rewarded by 5% chance if you did not learn it yet. And there's also a mod plan that you can get from the stage 2 of the raid, which is Drill Fist Ultrasight Bits, and the chance to get it is also 5% if you haven't learned it. Stage 3 of the raid is the Enclave Epsilon Squad, and after this stage you can get 2 weapons. The first one is the Resolve Breaker and the next one is the Flatliner, which I will show after this one. The Resolve Breaker also can be rewarded by 10% chance, and the plan of the Resolve Breaker can be rewarded by 5% chance if you haven't learned the plan yet. The Resolve Breaker has a lot of interesting effects. The first one is Bloodied. Damage increases up to 95% as health decreases, currently plus 82%. The next one is Replenish 15 action points with each kill. And the third one is plus 50 damage resist, plus 50 damage resistance while aiming. And the fourth star on this weapon is Electricians. When reloading, emit a shockwave that stuns nearby targets for 3 seconds. And it continues even better. It fires 2 projectiles per shot. So it's basically a bloody 2-shot auto grenade launcher. And it has minus 10 durability. Targets take 100 action points damage for 10 seconds. And the next effects is target moving speed reduced by 35% for 10 seconds. And cryogenic grenade explodes by 62 damage. So this auto grenade launcher doesn't only cause explosion damage, but also cryo damage. You can basically freeze your targets with this weapon. My Nuka Knight's buddy Pet Base already joked this might be a great weapon for PvP. Well, I don't play PvP, but maybe you have a use case for this one. The Flatliner is also a reward of stage 3 of the raid and also has a chance of 10% to be rewarded. The plan also has a chance of 5% if you haven't learned it yet. And the effects are plus 50% damage to humans, plus 50% chance to hit a target in VATS, plus 100% faster movement speed while aiming, and the fourth star is Conductors, which is critical hits restore 5% of health and action points for players and teammates within a radius of 50 feet. So there's also additional perks like plus 20% armor penetration, night vision, plus 40% reload speed, and minus 5 durability, and bullets explode for 15% weapon damage, which is what all Gauss weapons do. And this is a Gauss rifle, so this is a normal basic perk. Next is stage 4 of the raid, which is the Ultra Genetic Horde. If you finish this stage of the raid, you have the chance to get 2 weapons, which is the Cauterizer and the Lickety Split. The Cauterizer also has a 10% chance to drop as a weapon or a 5% chance to drop as a plan if you haven't learned the plan yet. Its effects are restore 2% health over 2 seconds when you hit a target, which is the Vampire's effect. The second one is plus 50% critical damage. The third one is plus 15 bonus watts critical charge. And the fourth one is Encirclers, which is plus 10% damage for each combat target around you, up to plus 50%. It also has additional effects like plus 25% AP cost and minus 5 durability and plus 5% armor penetration. I haven't played this yet, but I'm curious if it plays like an Auto Axe or a chainsaw. The Lickety Split is also a reward of the 4th stage of the raid, which is the Ultra Genetic Horde, and it has also a chance of 10% to be rewarded as a weapon, or 5% to get the plan if you haven't learned it. It's a Juggernaut's railway rifle. Damage increases up to plus 25% as health increases, currently plus 5%. Second star is plus 50% limb damage. The third star is plus 250 damage resistance while reloading. Gain plus 250 ballistic damage and energy damage resistance. And the fourth star is Fracturers, which is when crippling limbs, they explode and deal up to 50 explosion damage to nearby targets. Additional effects are minus 20% projectile damage and railway spike explodes for 30 damage. And the last one is attack staggers target, which is a normal railway rifle perk. The last two weapons are rewards of the 5th stage of the final stage of the raid, which is the stage where you meet the Ultracite Terror. The first weapon is the Boiling Point and the second weapon is the Ultracite Terror Sword. The Boiling Point has a 10% chance to be rewarded as a weapon and 5% chance to be rewarded as a plan if you haven't learned it yet. It's a Furious Flamer with a unique skin and it has the effects plus 5% damage after each consecutive hit on the same target up to plus 45%. Next one is plus 50% bash damage, plus 15% reload speed, and the fourth star is Pyromaniacs. When a combat target is burning, deal plus 50% bonus damage, which fits perfectly on this weapon. Also it has minus 5 durability and plus 25 poison resistance. The last weapon is the Ultracite Terror Sword. It's also a reward of the final stage of the raid, and it has also a 10% chance to be rewarded as a weapon and a 5% chance to be rewarded as a plan if you haven't learned the plan yet. Its effects are plus 50% armor penetration, plus 40% weapon speed, minus 40% damage taken while power attacking, and the fourth star is Vipers. When a combat target is poisoned, deal plus 50% bonus damage. And perfectly to that, it applies poison DOT on contact. And the last hidden perk is minus 5 durability. Well, I think this sword is not the best choice for the raid, but it's still a nice combination of perks you have here. All of these raid rewards weapons are tradable, and you can use all of them to learn the mods by chance. The chance to learn a 4-star mod again is 1%. That's all for this video. Make sure to check out nukanights.com. You will find all ongoing and upcoming events, current daily ops, new codes, current season progress, articles about the latest event rewards and topics, as well as some tools like an interactive action points calculator. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.